All right. Well, aloha. I think it's recording. My name is Craig Bradley. Welcome to my channel, All Good Things in All Good Time, where it's always a good day to be alive, no matter how horrible things might be in the world. um, and welcome to my podcast. I think I'm going to bring back the title Talking Story. Craig Bradley podcast, but there's also a Lahaina fire update and a little bit of the god awful news, which is something all subjects I've tried to address. Of course, I sincerely wish I had a friend to do this with, someone or multiple friends to do this with. Preferably, I'd love to be in conversation with someone else. But those people are hard to find, especially in today's strange times. Many people do not want to put themselves out there in the public with fear of retribution from all the various elements out there that are instilling fear in people. And I'm going to try to talk about anything and everything I can that's positive. And at some point, I will always attempt to make you smile, make you laugh. Although it's getting harder and harder every day. Let's get into it. The Lahaina fire update. So this is really through my tiny perspective, right? I am one of many people who survived the fire. All of us have a different story. They all, in some way or another, have stories of struggle and tragedy, and there were however many thousands of people that escaped and survived by the hair of their chin and lost everything they own in different amounts and proportions, and have had different experiences since. But there have been some recent things that have happened. As I try to navigate my future coming out of this, I may end up having a relatively happy ending, sort of beginning. So let me explain. I recently applied for the Maui relief program, which is either a county and or state or a combination of the two, getting together to try to help people. TANF, which used to be a program just for people with children, was expanded to help people who suffered loss from the fire. But FEMA lawyers in September apparently made it clear to the Maui relief program that if we accept any help at all from them, that's a duplication of benefits, and we put our FEMA benefits in jeopardy, and they'll pull the rug out from under us. In other words, one of the things you can ask for is help with money for clothing. I don't have any clothing per se, so I said, sure, why not? And I just submitted an application about 2 weeks ago. I immediately got an email saying, you'll lose your FEMA benefits. Now, I don't want to do anything to lose my FEMA benefits, because the one benefit I'm receiving is from FEMA, and it's this roof over my head, which is, granted, maybe too good for me. It is. There are very few places in Maui to live that aren't nice or good. And so I am very lucky to be here. No question about it. And I am very thankful. And I don't want to jeopardize this. Where I used to live, the place where I lost all of my belongings, where my home burned to the ground, but it wasn't my home. It was my friend's home, who you could call my landlord, but really like a family friend. My friends are much more like a family to me than my very own family. No one in my family reached out after the fire except for one person. It took him 5 days And the first thing he said to me was, "I bet you think it was Trump's fault." I tell you what. But I'm sure many of you can understand and sympathize and empathize because many of us, maybe most of us, have families that could be a little better. And if you ever watch Soft White Underbelly, you see that there are families that are far worse than you could ever have imagined. Just terrible parents that torture their children, harm them in ways unimaginable. Anyway, um, so I don't want to assume anything, um, but I think there's a pretty darn good chance. I have a good relationship with my friends who once owned the house. I have a pretty good feeling. We've talked about it. I don't want to, again, assume anything 100% because I don't want to set myself up for having a rug pulled out from under me. But I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to live where I once lived. And I'm pretty sure that my friend is going to invite me to live there once the house is rebuilt. And that will be wonderful. It'll be a lot like going back to where I was. It'll be, in almost every way other than the different house, me going right back to live where I once lived. And so that's a positive. And that he and his wife should be breaking ground pretty soon, and maybe they'll have that house built in 6 to 12 months. Now we've just been told we might get another 1 year of a roof over our head from FEMA. It's been extended. The program's been extended through the end of February, and so if things go sort of in the most ideal way they could go for me, I'll hopefully find employment. I am still working on, I think I'm working on, it's so hard to tell with the county, a job working for the county, which would be located about 200 yards from this house. So there's a chance I could move back in where I once lived and have a commute of a 200-yard walk to a job that will allow me to work, do homework, remaining a student, which I am currently, and maintain a high grade point average, which I currently have, while having a full-time job. It'll be a very low-paying full-time job, but it is one that offers a pension, or it forces you to put $1.60 or 8%. First 6 months I'll get paid $20 an hour, so that's $1.60 an hour. Meaning I'll be making $18.40 an hour. After taxes, I'll be making $14 an hour. Nevertheless, it would be super cool, and I'll be able to do my homework there, and work full time. And the supervisor said that he is typically very sympathetic to students, and wants to give a student days off when they're in school. So I hope to be in school full time, going to school on my days off, putting money towards a pension, and in 10 years, when I'm in my late 60s, I'll be able to trigger that pension. So that would be cool. Plus, I guess with a county, and by the way, I've never called in sick in my life. I did once, and that was for a fantasy football draft. I wasn't even sick. It was just peer pressure. They were like, "Craig, man, you never called in sick. 30 years. Today's the day. You got to come to the draft." So I did that. Anyway, and that was in like 2015. Anyway, which means I'm just going to accumulate sick days and then vacation days. If I go for a while without taking vacation days, I'll just accumulate those. And you can accumulate up to 400 of them, which is pretty cool. So I really look forward to accumulating vacation days, which will allow me to travel and or compete as an outrigger canoe paddler on Saturdays when race days happen, even if I don't have those days off, which I expect not to have. If I'm taking Monday, Wednesdays off for school, I'll be working Saturdays, which means I won't be able to race. But I can sacrifice 1 year of not racing, still paddling and training, just not being maybe able to race. Anyway, so sort of like the only good news. Some of the only good news I can talk about is the hypothetical good news, where I get to remain here until I move into where I once lived, and I never have to navigate finding some other place to live, like low-income housing or whatever else, some super overpriced place. Um, my hope is that my friends who weren't charging me um, nearly the market rate, they were very fair. My rent was lower than virtually almost everybody else's in town, and that covered everything previous to the fire. And so, of course, I have hopes that my rent won't be as high as it could be. I'm very curious to see what they would ask from me, or what they will ask. But it's not like I'm going to haggle. I'm just probably going to say yes, please, and thank you, um, and hope that my small income will will cover it. Um, but if I don't have much costs, or very many costs uh, associated with getting to work, um, then and if I with a low income, I'll probably get EBT. Then I think I should be able to make it work. So, and then if I can, and then as an old man getting older, right? There might be three things. If I can get that pension to look forward to at 67, that would be helpful. At 62 or 3, I should qualify for Social Security, which will be around 1,500 a month, I think, maybe, hopefully. And there is a huge settlement that I might get some small part of. I don't know how much. I don't know if it's going to be $5, 5,000, 50,000, 250,000. I have no idea. But perhaps you've heard of it. There was a $4 billion settlement for survivors of the fire, and at some point in the future, they're going to start paying out from that. It'll be spread out over 4 years, 4 one-time payments, which, as an old guy hoping to survive, these things will be very helpful, could be very helpful, depending upon how well they go and if they all happen the way I'd like them to. So there's that. So I'm going to go into the Maui Relief Fund, I think, tomorrow on Monday, and tell them, take me out of your queue. I'm in line. I don't like that word queue. You're in line. I'm in line right now. They say it takes about 2 months to get to the thing, but then if they approve me, bam, that's a duplication of benefits, and that could make me homeless. So I don't want to become homeless so that I can get help from TANF, right? Nor would anybody. So there's that. Recently there were about 1,000, or about 600 families, 700 families left in FEMA housing, and we were all under threat of being evicted this month, and that got pushed forward. But we're being warned and threatened. You better get out. You gotta get out, or you don't really have a year. You need to get out. You gotta find something. Everybody. I have a disaster case manager tell me that. The FEMA lady tells me that. And I have, in the meantime, been preparing myself for homelessness mentally for the whole time since the fire, including recently. I got a storage unit, put most of my stuff in there. I just talked to them yesterday because they failed to charge my account the right way, so I had to give them my information again. But they explained to me, after 2 days of being late, the gate won't work for you. You can't get into your things. They steal your stuff after 2 days of being late. Of course, you can pay it, and then you've got some grace period before they just capture all your stuff. So that's terrifying. And so I'm going to be getting my stuff out of there just because it's terrifying. I'd love to keep it for the convenience, but it's terrifying. So I do not want to lose all my things. The few things I still have that I saved from the fire that have any value at all are in storage. So, but maybe I should start, going to these auctions to purchase people's units because of the things that they capture from other people, which is, it's sad, it's disturbing. But I could see how there could be value in those things, right? And Anyway, so I'm still unemployed. I'm starting to think I should start looking for a whole myriad of other jobs as I've been waiting for 3 months. I applied for a job with the county in November 15th. I took a written test November 23rd. I took a physical test, like a physical achievement test, a test of how well I could perform physically, and I passed that. Uh, it, it, with it used needing only 60% of the time. It was a time test. There were 10 minutes to complete it. I did it in just under 6 minutes. So I passed that with flying colors. Then I had an interview, and that went well. And then I didn't hear from them for a month and a half. And then when they called, they were like, we need a reference." So anyway, so that's that. That's what's going on. That's my tiny little story. Um, Everybody has a different story. There is an award-winning film that's making its rounds through the film festivals around the country called Lahaina Rising. You might see it at a film festival near you, and then perhaps we'll see it on a streaming service sometime soon. And my good friend Spud, who I'm going to help move tomorrow, this poor guy, he hasn't received any help from anybody. He did recently get on Social Security, which is his lifeline, and he had SNAP benefits, but those were reduced based on a lie from SNAP saying that he's now making $8 more than $1,500 a month, and therefore his SNAP benefits were reduced by like 75%, which was weird, uncool, not surprising with this current bunch of criminals managing our country. What else? What else? But I tell you what, when I get out of the house, Friday I got out of the house and I saw a good old friend, a guy I look up to a lot, hardcore local guy, local family, waterman extraordinaire, owner of a surf school that burned down, a shop that burned down called the Royal Hawaiian Surf School. He was the lead character in an MTV television show called Living Lahaina that was in about, I don't know, year 2000, 2001. It was about a bunch of surf instructors and their boss, and he was their boss, but just a good guy, man. Also a guy who sold me killer stand-up surfboards for almost nothing. I mean, he charged me $400 for a board worth way more than that. And he just asked me about it on Friday. I'm like, oh, that burned up in the fire. But it was replaced by my friend Jeremy giving me what is like a $3,000 carbon fiber stand-up board. A guy who's paddled the Molokai Channel 27 times in various forms. Just a great guy, and another guy I look up to too. He's in my fantasy football league. Anyway, so Friday was inspiring. I went to the gym. I did an hour of cardio. I saw this fucking guy that, pardon my language. I'm going to try to do this in ways that don't trigger, and I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff that's really not pleasant in any way, shape, or form when we get to some of the news. But I'm going to try to do this in a way that doesn't trigger well, we'll see, because if you put it through YouTube's sensitivity, like it combs through your material to see if it triggers certain types of content warnings, making it inappropriate for some sponsors, etc. I'm going to see if I can do this getting around all that. And so maybe I shouldn't have sworn, but maybe one swear word will be tolerated. Who knows? All right. So that's that. Yeah. So the other good news is, as I've mentioned before, I am an honors student. That is pretty exciting. I've never been an honors student. I supposedly got a proof of financial aid, so I need to go and get whatever that financial aid is and figure out how that works. And then I should be applying for scholarships, but I've never done that before, so I can't speak to that. But here at Maui College, there is a lovely young woman who will help you work your way through all of the financial aid application stuff. Just go to the financial aid office if you're a student here, and ask for help with that, and you will get it, which is in many cases what I find I need. For better, for worse, for whatever reason, maybe I was born this way, maybe I've been shaped by some events in my life that have been hard on my brain. But my attention span isn't what I wish it was, and I benefit from having a tutor for many things. It's how I got through statistics a long time ago, and I really honed in on my potential if I have someone teaching me something. It seems like I can learn almost anything if I have a person teaching me how to do it the right way, like with statistics, with math, right? If every time you do your homework, every time you do a problem for your homework, someone is there explaining to you the right way to do it, every single assignment, right? Then you learn how to do everything the right way every time, and you don't waste any of your time. And for me, I was able to almost get an A in statistics after dropping out of it 2 or 3 times previous. So but I experienced the same thing in computer-related classes. They just get going too fast. I need a tutor, and I have yet to find one. So I need to go to the Learning Center and see if they have them there, try to prepare for next semester, etc. Nevertheless, a big part of college, which I recommend going back to school. Take a class in anything, take a class in something. There are so many interesting things out there, whether it's at your local visual arts center like we have here that offers classes, or your community college. I love community colleges, and I just recently took my first art class ever, and then one of those assignments was accepted into an art exhibition, and it sold right away. So that's exciting. I'd always wanted to see people render lilikoi flowers artistically, and but I never did. So I finally did it myself. If you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself, they say. So I did, and that was cool. And that was accepted. It's still on the wall, I think, at the Hui no Eao, the Visual Arts Center, up country in Makawao, here on Maui. And so, you never know, right? You never know what could come from taking a class. I don't know how to, do construction. They have a framing class, a construction class. I want to take that, right? They have a welding class I want to take. They have a class in one of the 2 dominant Filipino languages. There's Tagalog and Ilocano. They have classes in Ilocano. I'd have to try that. I'm not sure if I'll be able to stay very long, but I want to try that. It's pretty important to me to get good grades, so if it seems like I'm on a trajectory to not get an A, or at the very least a B, then I am going to pull out of that class. And if you don't know this, like some people don't, if you've never been to college, first of all, anyone can join a community college, right? Anyone. You don't need a high school diploma. You can enroll, start taking classes, and in the first 8 days you can drop a class after you've been to one class with a full refund. After about 17 days you can drop with half a refund, fully, and then past that point you can go about almost 2/3 of the way into the semester and drop out with a W, which has no reflection on your grade point average. And it's good to manage your college experience. College management is a big part of it. And then, of course, if you can manage to do what I've recently done, which is get good grades, get a good grade point average, it feels really good, right? There's few things in life that feel as good as getting good grades, and now I've been admitted into the Phi Theta Kappa, the Honors Society, which is cool. I have a feeling, should I wish to transfer, should I wish to apply for scholarships, that will work in my favor. So that's all very positive, right? And going to the gym, I'm trying to work on all this chubbiness. Um, and canoe season's coming, and I want to be a valuable paddler to my canoe club and volunteer. Um, and being strong, fit, having good cardio capacity, these are going to be assets for me. But it's also, I mean, granted, the news is very disturbing, but the keys to a happy, healthy life, I think, are generally always the same, right? I'm not reinventing the wheel here. A good night's rest with a clean conscience is important, right? Eating healthy, good nutrition, right? Feeding your body things that will benefit it, that will make it feel good. After you exercise, when you eat healthy food, it just feels good as it sinks in. It's this weird thing. And then, of course, exercise, right? We want to pursue regular exercise. And if you're getting older, like me, if you're over 40 or 50, any age, people die of heart attacks in their 20s and 30s. It's never too late, and it's never too early to start exercising consistently, as much as you can, doing whatever you can. I find swimming, I think most will agree, is one of the very best ways of doing that. Long walks up steep hills, long walks on the beach, resistance training, cardio. I've been doing the elliptical, which is easy on the body as compared to, say, jogging. And yeah, it's pretty simple, right? And then if you've got that repertoire, those three things going, if you can, on top of eating healthy, sleeping healthy, exercising, if you can cop a good attitude, right, which is the only thing you have control of, is your response to all the things you don't have control of, you're doing yourself as many favors as you possibly can. You're playing the odds in your favor, right, which is, I think, safe to assume what I and any normal, rational person can recommend, right? If you want to be influenced by somebody, allow the people who are influencing you to eat right, exercise, sleep healthy with a clean conscience, and have a good attitude. If they're saying that kind of stuff to you, then I recommend them to be probably pretty good influencers. If they're any of these crazy people who are typically in the wrong wing, right? There's the left wing and the wrong wing. Yeah, they don't do any good for anybody. They just create and spew divisive things and hateful content, and it's very unfortunate. And for some reason, these people with often some kind of strange mental issues, they want to be seen. They want to be online. They want everyone to hear their twisted thoughts. And then sometimes people find themselves becoming like them, and that is unhealthy. All right, so that is the conclusion of and Lahaina is probably, I don't know, it's probably 25% rebuilt. Probably 40% of it is in motion, but the town itself, the business elements of Lahaina, don't seem to have been touched. I think hopefully maybe I'll do a little drive around in Lahaina. I kind of avoid it because it doesn't make a guy happy to revisit the terror and the tragedy. Nevertheless, time is helping to heal, and perhaps it's content people would be interested in. And we're past the point where I would be sort of exploiting the town for the sake of views, which is really all, which is kind of what it felt like I would have been doing in the past, and that just didn't seem right. All right. So let's talk about the god awful news. Holy smokes, is it terrible? I mean, my goodness. Friday, I came home from the gym from running into Chemo K. And Chemo told me he was watching my channel and watching my podcasts, and that he noticed when I faded away for a while or stopped for a while, and I didn't know he was watching, and that was very flattering, and it was inspiring, which is inspiring this content right now. Yesterday, I woke up on a happy note, and I called my son and told him that I think I could really be able to help him if he can start helping himself, but I would need to see him taking action to want to help himself, right? Whether it's God or anyone, people love to help people who are helping themselves, right? If you're a student, people love to help people who are students. If you are someone with a job, someone working forward in life, people love to help people who are doing that for themselves, right? I recently had a sit down. I thought he wanted me to put a story out there, and so I interviewed a guy on the street who lives on the street. He's right down here outside. When he told me that he was living on the streets, that he'd been kicked out of his housing or whatever, I felt terrible. I thought he had housing, and then he was just coming down to the street to panhandle to try to survive, which is what he does. He asks for help, and that's okay. I understand he needs it. He literally has nothing, no possessions, just the clothes on his back, and people do bring him assistance regularly. Kind-hearted people bring him food, buy him alcohol. In any case, I talked to him, and he is one of these people who doesn't seem to want to help himself. He doesn't have the aspiration of getting healthy and finding work someday, or being part of anything other than just kind of existing and asking people for help on the streets and being as intoxicated as he can be. Of course, he's obviously an alcoholic, but it's very disappointing, and it makes it harder for me to want to help him, right? When I first talked to him and learned of his plight, I didn't know much, but I felt terrible. So I cooked him breakfast. I brought him some one of my favorite T-shirts. Granted, I don't have very many. And a blanket and water and food and peroxide. He had a wound that was going to have maggots because it was just covered in flies. And so I brought peroxide, poured it over it, treated his wound, put Band-Aids on his knee, and interviewed him. And through the interview, I came to realize that in some ways, no one can help him. No one can help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. And so I'm trying to teach this to my son, who needs to start helping himself, right? I got him enrolled in college, and then he just wouldn't sign up for a class. He refused to even sign up for a class, telling me he didn't think he could. He didn't think he was capable, right? He just quitting before he starts. Like, anyway. And of course, he struggles to find work because high school didn't go well for him. And it's a lot easier to find work if you're a college student. People will hire you. Right? He also qualified for financial aid that he could be getting, but his mom talked him out of that. What mom talks their kid out of going to college, going to school, telling them that they can't do it? I mean, it's very frustrating, saddening, heartbreaking, and I'm trying to get my son motivated. But maybe, even though I can't motivate him, maybe I can motivate you, right? So anyway, I pray, I hope. But anyway, he needs to start going to the gym with me to prepare for canoe season. And uh, and he needs to paddle canoe. If he's not in school, if he's not going to work, then he can do that. And that will be both an education, a place to make a lot of new friends, and it will get him fit, and it will help him find work, and it will be healthy for him mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in every way. However, if he chooses to just blow me off and not do this simple thing, then I'm not going to be able to do much to help him. There's be nothing I can do for the kid. If he doesn't show an interest in helping himself and taking care of himself and moving himself forward in life, no one can help him. And that's sad to say about, someone you love more than anybody in the world. But I just can't be attached to an outcome for him when he isn't interested or willing to do anything, right? So that's that. All right, so enough of that. The Super Bowl was interesting. It's crazy that there are people who can't handle people who speak Spanish. That's so weird. I took Spanish 1, then I took Spanish 1 again, and then I took it in 7th grade, I think in 8th grade, as a freshman, as a sophomore, and then once in college. All Spanish 1, over and over. I'm not the best foreign language student. And I've worked with many Spanish-speaking people in the restaurant business since I was 15 years old. And these are great people, the best among us. Of course, immigrants commit half as much crime as white folk like me, born and raised in America. So they are the best of the best of us. And they're great family people, they're great neighbors. The one time I ran out of gas, my neighbor from Mexico pulled over behind me 30 seconds later, took me to the gas station, and then brought me back to my car, right? Great people. And all my friends who are from other countries are great people. Tongans, Samoans, Asians, my friends who happen to be black are great people, and they are all being mistreated. Women, oh my God. It's really sad to see what's happening in the news. The news is beyond shocking, saddening, horrifying, depressing. Yesterday was kind of a sad day as I watched, the news. That's it's evolving, right? Then there's Kid Rock and his weird little KKK Yahtzee halftime show. Kid Rock is 2 years younger than me, and he looks like he is 70 years old. Not that there's anything wrong with looking 70 years old, but when you're 54 or 5 and you look 70, and you're a racist person, it becomes fun to pick on you. I tell you what a loser that guy is. Oh my God. And he's afraid of everybody. He doesn't know what a woman is or a man. He shoots beer because he's stupid. He's afraid of gay people. Imagine being that much of a wuss. Trying to keep my language watered down. I'm really going to be curious to see what gets triggered by all the algorithms that are going to review this content before I publish it. I'm going to try to talk about horrifying things in a way that doesn't trigger those things. We'll see what happens. All right. So we all watch these federal criminal officers harm people, continue to harm people, locking up children, shooting unarmed civilian citizens even, but we're all citizens of the world and this country, whether you're documented or not, in the back, right? Alex Petty was the best among us, a nurse in the ICU at a veterans hospital. Hospitals that have had much of their funding cut, and there have been many layoffs at the VA, which is just a tragedy. It's sad for all of our veterans having and we weren't, I think, helping them as well as we could in the first place, and now we're going to help them less, which is not cool. These people sacrificed a lot. their minds, their bodies to serve in the military, their health in many cases. And then that beautiful mother of a couple of kids who or three kids who had just dropped her 6-year-old son off and then was murdered, shot in the face. That was very difficult to watch and stomach. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. The number of people being kidnapped, assaulted, um, people who are dying in custody, people are dying as a result of the abuse or the misuse of the power and authority of the government is shocking, and it does not sit well with me or anybody. And the words I'm hearing on the streets are not good. There is a lot of pent up and anger that's building in people, and I will not be surprised to see any and all kinds of actions that are an equal and opposite reaction to the harm being done to innocent people, right? The Savannah Guthrie situation with her mom being abducted, I will not be surprised, and I think many won't be surprised to find out that the perpetrator, you know, is a Republican, you know, one of those wrong wing people. But we don't know yet. However, I just would not be surprised, right? Anyway, you know, that's the kind of person that would do something like that. What else? Let's see. Oh, the DHS funding shutdown is fantastic. I'm sorry that TSA employees are not getting paid, but it's the greatest thing ever if we can not fund the Department of Homeland Security, if they can stop going to work because they're not getting paid. ICE, Border Patrol, those lists of demands were not strong enough. Pretty disappointing, actually. But I guess there's Republicans that think they're too strong, you know, like showing their faces, wearing body cams, following the Constitution is just way too much to ask for. Is sad, right? Oh, just want to remind you from my kitchen, I've been using a ton of oregano. Oregano is a natural antibiotic, right? It tastes good too. I always liked basil more, but when I came to learn years ago that oregano is a natural antibiotic, it just became something I wanted to put in all my food. So I've been doing that, and I recommend you do too. So that's kind of cool, positive, right? All these people who have aided and abetted the crimes and criminals who are managing our country, like that unfunny, sucky guy, Joe Rogan. What a douche! And he still can't really come. He can't make. He's just. He helped put these people in office, and what he should do if he was smart, like all retardiclans, is what they could do, right, is say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I was completely wrong, and then take the pledge, I will never vote for one of these wrong wing people ever again. It's the whole party. And yes, there are people on the left who are in power who have done things that are unspeakable, that are terrible also, right? But it seems like they're, to a far greater degree, living on the other side, right? And when and if we can suss these people out, we can just get them out of the left wing, right? We can just vote them out. But stay tuned. I'm saving the worst for last. The Environmental Protection Agency just decided that they're not going to do anything to protect us from poisons in the air and the water and the soil. So that's a real bummer. And what's crazy is that some of the people who voted for the wrong wing that's managing our country weren't smart enough, right? The gun-owning hunters, fishermen, apparently they didn't have the IQ high enough to understand that the only source of healthy fish in a healthy stream comes from a healthy stream that's clean, right? If you want to go shoot an elk needs a pristine, healthy environment to live in, to grow up in, so that they exist in the first place, and then that you can kill them, eat them without getting poisoned by their meat. All these things, right? Like gun owners, if you were smart, and if you're a gun owner because you're someone who likes to hunt, then you should absolutely be an environmentalist. You should be fighting for the environment with your vote every time you vote, right? All around me, it's so perplexing. The one relative that I speak to who is a Republican just 2 days ago told me he's in favor of women having a right to reproductive health care. Told me he believes that there should not be weapons of war on the streets of America. Assault rifles never should have been introduced to the streets of America, but they were in 2004 by the wrong wing politicians. George Bush and his idiot cronies made it possible and legal for ignorant people to go buy weapons of war, which makes hunting not even fair. It's a bummer, and it's so weird when you meet these people who seem to have some sense, right? They realize women should have the right. Oh, and of course I love it, right? The people who've all either paid for an abortion or had abortions, they've enjoyed those freedoms themselves. Then they move along in life to a place where they decide to vote against other people's rights to do the same thing that they've enjoyed. I find it pretty hypocritical, and there's a lot of that out there. It's in my family, and it's the one lady on Facebook that's just a diehard, just despicable human being who talks about her love for the current management. I know for a fact she was, as a 19-year-old, she dated a 16-year-old boy, got pregnant, he paid for her abortion, right? And she's lived her whole life voting against women's rights. It's hard to put those things together. But I think, studies have recently proven, this is satire, but it's true, that Nazi number, the one, the My Pillow guy sold his pillows for $14.88, right? 88 being some kind of Hitler number. Anyway, 88, which is just above, mental, they used to call it, metardation, but they got new name, mentally challenged people. Just above that is 88. That is, I think, what studies have proven is the average IQ of someone on the wrong wing. So, yeah, that's almost like a joke. The SAVE Act is the Destruction Act, Destruction of Voting Rights Act, right? It's going to take women's right to vote away. Imagine being one of these women dumb enough to vote, to lose your right to vote. That's terrible. I don't have a passport. Maybe I can't vote without a passport. It will disenfranchise and suppress so much voting. And of course, the wrong wing are the perpetrators of this injustice, and ignorant people are fooled into thinking that that makes sense somehow. Oh, we need that. No, we didn't. There, anyway. Oh God. I'm curious about this USA versus the world. Is it a way to celebrate the people who aren't born in America, or is it sort of a divisive element in sports? I think soccer's doing the same thing with the NBA. I think that's today. The NBA All-Star Game is the USA versus the world, which isn't really a good framing, in my opinion. It seems almost anti-immigrant or racist in a way, right? But then again, you could also look at it the other way, as it celebrates the talents and abilities that people from other countries bring to our country, right? You could see it both ways, but I tend to kind of, I don't, it's not a good look right now with all the harm we're doing to the beautiful people who've come here from other countries. Um, it's really, I think it's disappointing. Um, oh, all right. So PFAS chemicals, we know they're bad. They're terrible. We've known this for a long time. They're at odds with our health, with the health of everything on the planet. And under this current regime, we are not stopping the production of these things. In fact, they just announced they're going to start putting that into things that they spray on food. Pesticides, herbicides are going to have PFAS chemicals in them, which makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it makes sense that it's being done by these dangerous criminals who are, running the country and in some cases the world, because they have no regard for human life. But it also harms their own children's children and their communities and themselves, which is just, I mean, it's stupid on such a high level. I don't know why it would be difficult. What we need are laws that come from the people, of the people, for the people, by the people, and that are passed. Right? We need to elect people who are going to outlaw PFAS chemicals across the board. Okay? And why would we not want to outlaw data collection? They talk about data mining like it's the new mining, it's the new gold, is exploiting your information and my information for profit's sake, which is just disturbing, right? Taking our information and about everything that we do and selling it. Why wouldn't it be the normal, natural thing for humans, especially Americans who believe in a right to privacy, to vote to outlaw that? That is not a good way to make money for anybody, not for us. And to allow our corporations to use us like that is insane. And if we were smart people collectively, we would draft laws, pass laws, and enact laws that stop that, outlaw it, right? Wouldn't it be great if it started somewhere, like, my God, like just in one state or one county? I'd love it if just Maui County said, we're going to outlaw the collection of your data. And these flock surveillance cameras, why would we want to be surveilled, again, against our privacy rights? We need to stop that. We need to draft laws and pass laws and enact laws that stop mass surveillance. Any connectivity of cameras is against our freedom, okay? And for the one or two crimes it might solve, it's not worth it, okay? It's absolutely not worth it. And the potential for it to be misused is insane. So I don't know if you saw this, but of course, this current group of inferior, typically white people, although there's that brown leprechaun, that 4-foot tall brown leprechaun that runs the FBI, Cash Yap. His name is Cash Yap. Cash Yap. Not Cash. Cash Yap Patel. And I'm still waiting, just waiting, crickets, for anyone in the media, independent media, any media, to use his real name, which I'm sure, I assume, I'm guessing, is embarrassing to him. I assume, I presume, I'm guessing he was teased because of that as a kid. Probably stunted his growth. So funny to see him on a tall chair with his tiny little legs dangling. Imagine the little Napoleon, the Napoleon complex he's got. I mean, we see it every time he speaks. Valhalla, what is that? Guy from India, or of Indian descent, talking about that. And doesn't he realize that the white supremacists don't fit him into their world? They don't like him. And how did he go from being accusatory of people in the Epstein files to then deciding he's going to cover up all their crimes? That's wild and weird and spineless. All right. But there's a new white inferiorist, this incredibly inferior man, with an IQ of, I'm guessing, about 88. I think he's from Montana. His name is Jeremy Carl, and he's going to be put in the position of Assistant Secretary of State for International Affairs, right? He's got a little bit of hair, but he's basically a skinhead white supremacist, being put into office. He thinks us white people are having a cultural genocide done against us. Where's that happening, dude? What world do you live in? Not the real world. You live in some twisted world of just irrational fears. But I get it. A guy like him has a hard time competing in a world where everyone's smarter than him, everyone works harder than him, everyone looks better than him, everyone's taller than him. Although height doesn't mean anything. Here in Hawaii, I know a lot of guys that aren't super tall, but nobody discounts their manhood, and they don't see themselves as less they're not worried about their height. They are just as badass as any other guy you'll ever meet. And yeah, and it's one of the things I love about this place. I just don't run it. I don't have friends. I got a lot of friends who are, I think I'm like 5'10" and a half. I'm not that tall. But I got a lot of friends that aren't as tall as me, and none of them are guys I see myself looking down on. That's for damn sure. And they don't see themselves in that way either. But apparently on the mainland, we got a whole bunch of short guys that are so insecure that they need to do harm to make up for it, and take on weird fears like this guy. Just disgusting seeing this guy in the Capitol building in a hearing being nominated by these horrible people. Anyway, that happened. Just a clear moron. It's just, and these are the people who think that they're superior. But oh my God, it is just inferiority on full display. Right? This is the immoral minority, the white inferiorists, embarrassing the rest of us that share a skin color. That's all we share with these sick bastards. Anyway, let's move on. I saw some very interesting testimony. It was a disturbing illusion. This guy, and I can't stop looking at it. Can't stop looking at the comparative aspects. But this woman who pretended to be Ghislaine Maxwell, who took the fifth, who recently testified, right, and said, I need a pardon if I'm going to say anything. Yeah, just so much corruption. But she looks like a different person altogether. And this disturbing illusion, or disturbed illusion, I think that's the name of the guy's YouTube channel. He points out some interesting things, like the real Ghislaine Maxwell has a totally different shaped nose. She has this drooping part of her nose, which is a certain kind of nose. She has different eyes and ears lined up to it. But every picture you see of old Ghislaine Maxwell shows a different nose completely than the woman in that. So you wonder when they supposedly moved her, if that was really when they swapped her out and gave her freedom. And of course, there are conspiracy theorists that believe Jeffrey never died and that he's living somewhere, which seems more possible every day. Um, but it's hard to know the truth on that, absolutely. But it's not, I could absolutely see a world where the two of them are still alive, somewhere being protected by some billionaire in some place that, you know, where they continue to do horrible things to women and girls and children and boys, etc. Anyway, that was interesting. Um, oh, oh yeah. Bill Maher sucks. Also, how about this Sean Ryan guy, who supposedly cares about children's been, you know, who who's been fighting for the wrong wing, right, and been on Team Trump this whole time, and now suddenly he has a conscience. He like, ugh, it is just sad, right? Just another guy who pretended to care about anything and then suddenly realizes, oh, he was wrong about everything because the wrong wing is wrong about everything and they're probably pretty darn evil. Um, yeah, it's ugh, all these people who just lick the boots of authoritarianism and then decide, oh, maybe that's not a good idea. Oh, maybe. Um, all right, I think we've talked about all the little things I want to talk about, except for the worst of the worst. Right? Have you heard all this cryptic language in these files about weird things that they like to eat? Muffins, jerky, perhaps people that are this big. The just it's so disturbing. It's hard to even want to mention. But and then Jeffrey Epstein, and in line with all that, Jeffrey Epstein's personal private chef, who has seen God knows what. The name of his restaurant, I think in New York City, was called the Cannibal. Right? That's the name of Jeffrey Epstein's chef's restaurant. Right? And he was once on TV at a cooking show showing off the Cannibal Burger. And so you can extrapolate that there's a lot more going on there. And there's a lot being said about this. It's been said for a long time. I heard a conspiracy theory about under that temple in the tunnels, the consumption of flesh that is the same stuff that the Donner Party consumed, although in the form of children, perhaps babies. And then, of course, you've perhaps heard the truth about this adrenochrome, which is a drug that your adrenal gland spits out when a person is tortured to death, and the potential for people to want to get high from it, or maybe it has anti-aging effects. Is China extracting that from the people? It takes its prisoners in China and just harvests their organs while they're alive, kills them that way, takes out their kidneys, sells them. You can get kidneys, you can buy organs from China, where they get them from. But you can also just go on, I think, Alibaba and find adrenochrome for sale, which is a Chinese Google or a Chinese Amazon. Anyway, all of this is so disturbing. But if you haven't heard it, the mentions of jerky, of dried meat that many of these people revolving around Jeffrey Epstein we're all in favor of consuming, of eating, which is just over the top, insane, disgusting, gross. And so, they were exploiting people, and then what were they doing with those people after they exploited them? I suspect that the people's testimony that we're getting now were the lucky ones that got out with their lives, right? The assumption there being that many didn't. And I've always thought there's probably bodies buried out there in New Mexico at that ranch, which has never fully been investigated, and and maybe offshore in off the island. But then also, I mean, Joe Rogan just recently talked about this, but it's been there's a lot of disturbing things, but one of them is the 330 gallons of sulfuric acid that was ordered to the island the day after Jeffrey Epstein was imprisoned, right? And what was the purpose of that? And what did they do with that sulfuric acid, right? And then, if you didn't hear the news story, they filled the tunnels with concrete. Why did they do that? My assumption was to hide evidence, right? And so, who knows what the actual details, the sordid details are? They're probably as bad or worse than you and I could even imagine. And the thought that these people in high places with lots of money would even want this, like I mentioned earlier, the best lived life is a life where you sleep well with a clean conscience. There's no way any of these people with billions of dollars have a clean conscience, and there's no amount of money in the world that would be worth having a dirty conscience. It just, but of course, what you can assume from what we're learning, right, is that all of this was just, these were all things used against people, right? And I'm sure if you were one of these people who was committing horrible crimes against innocent people, children, babies, whatever, you were told, oh, look, no one's ever been brought up on charges for any of this stuff, so we'll keep the secrets, right? They were filming everything. They had documentation on everybody, whether it was the KGB, Mossad, other dark entities trying to control the world, right? They would invite these people into this sick world and promise they'll keep their stuff secret. They just gotta, stay on board and be part of their cabal, controlling the world. Who knows what happens at Bohemian Grove, which is interesting to me. My great-grandfather, his brother, and their kids were members of the Bohemian Grove. What were they involved in? I hope that my ancestors were members, but not part of any sort of horrible acts against anyone that was innocent, right? And then, of course, that can be used against these people and keep them in line, keep them in check, keep them doing what people want them to do, whoever all of these people are. The end of the day, what we need to do, obviously, is put forth people for elected positions who are good people, who would never do harm, right? Never do crime, and then support the heck out of them and push them to the highest levels of power and control in the world and in our country, and hold corporations and their leaders to account for their crimes, right? So in a way, there is hope through that mechanism, right? Again, if a billionaire out there ever wants to help me get into politics, I won't do anything for you, but I'll take your money and I'll get into politics and I'll do what I think is right. And I won't be a harm doer or a crime committer. Not that that's ever going to happen. I am inspired, by the way, recently, maybe more so than ever, to finally make an attempt to write a book. And I want to talk about it because I want to do it. And I'm hoping that if I talk about it, I will do it. I need to get this done. I've been wanting to write this book since I rode a bicycle across the United States 3 times. 3 times to raise awareness for missing and exploited children, right? If you wonder where my heart's always been. When I was 20, I rode across the United States from Marin County to San Diego to Tampa up to Washington, D.C., ending at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I met Ernie Allen, John Walsh. That was cool. And I flew home, started the junior college, and then after a summer of doing not very much, working as a busboy, I decided to do it again. So in the summer of '91, I flew to New York City and rode back to California, rode back to San Francisco, called in on a radio station called KRQR 97.3, The Rocker, once a week, with the Weed Man, Stephen Seaweed, on the Weed Man Smoking Hot Lunch. And then in '92, I flew to Bangor, Maine, and rode back through the northern states, which is also cool, and was fun. And who knows, maybe I'll do that again. If I become homeless here, maybe I put things in storage and then ride a bicycle across the United States of America. Won't have to pay rent, right? The money I save on rent would be enough to survive on the road. So anyway, if you haven't heard of this kid who's now a war veteran, strong dude who's survived the most horrific father, this guy Sasha Riley, and his testimony is gnarly. He testifies to being a witness, not right in front of him, but a witness to children being exploited and harmed in the worst possible ways, unalived. And he tells a story, and this trigger warning, adult content warning. He tells a story that explains why, because I think many people have wondered, why has DJT, douchebag, train wreck, or the douchebag jackass train wreck, the traitor, why he's been wearing diapers for 30 years. And apparently, you should hear it from Sasha Riley, but apparently he asked this boy to do something with him, and instead of doing something with him, he took a wooden peg and kicked it into the backside of our current president. A wooden peg. And that, I assume, to some extent perforated DJT's colon, which is why he has been incontinent ever since. And he was told, and you could hear it from him, the reason they didn't unsubscribe him to life was because it's harder to find boys that they can abuse, right? Girls easy to find, apparently, but boys are harder to find. And this guy's father would rent him out to any and all kinds of horrific abuse at the hands of people like Jim Jordan, who he testifies to have memories of being beaten to an inch of his life and molested and abused by. But I heard that on Worse Every Day, an appropriate news channel name in today's world, because that's what these wrong-wing people are going to give us. Worse news every day. If you think the news is bad today, tomorrow it's going to get worse. Which brings me to the worst of the worst news, right? And also, it is no coincidence, right, that almost everybody that has been hired by this administration, all of these sick Republicans, are all in the files. We're all friends of Epstein, right? Are all guilty of stuff, all have blackmail over them, right? They all have, someone's got something on all of them, right? And it's no coincidence that the director of Rush Hour and the actor Chris Tucker are also part of this group of people. I remember hearing years ago that Chris Tucker had been a guest at the New Mexico ranch of torture or whatever it was. And so, of course, Trump says, "I want to bring that movie back with that director who, right, is under their thumb because of his involvements with these molesters, and Chris Tucker as well. I mean, it's everywhere you look, all around, all of these people. That guy, Coward Nutlick, he testified that he after 2006 or 7, he never was anywhere near Jeffrey, and then he recently admits and testifies to having brought his children and nanny and his friend and their children on their boat, which was some kind of big yacht, down to the island. Years after Epstein was a convicted and registered offender. Pretty hard to believe, pretty weird, pretty gross, and I guess that's what we get from these guys. And then there's and then Kristi Noem. Oh, she's just heinous. And there's some mention that she's going to run for president. Oh, gross. Anyway, talk about fraud, waste, and abuse. That's all these people are doing, is committing fraud, wasting our resources, right? Using hundreds of, highly paid federal officers to do nothing but terrorize us. I mean, how is that an efficient use of government money? While they're taking the people who are putting up roofs, building the houses, painting the houses, raising our kids, raising our crops, cleaning our houses, mowing our lawns, people working, cooking our meals, washing our